I'm Amy Veatch, and I'm an instructor in art for the city of Raleigh and other places. So I've been asked to introduce myself, and I'm mainly known around these parts as someone who makes jewelry. I love working with metal jewelry, metal to make jewelry, metal and stones. I was trained actually as a painter, so I have a degree in painting, and I love to work with 2 dimensions also, but I love making little sculptures with metal and stones, and from the earliest time I can think of, I made things. I made prints, I made things out of pieces of nature, sticks and rocks, and I've collected rocks my whole life, so one of those people that always had a rock in a pocket somewhere from a walk or a hike or anything. So rocks are beautiful colors, and they inspire me to put those colors other places. So I started painting and was lucky enough to have a lot of art available to me and art instruction available to me as a young person. And that's what I love to do here is the city of Raleigh, teach people how to make things. When I was asked to teach this class, I was given a list of prompts, and one of the prompts was things from your childhood. So I thought about the art kinds of things that I did in my childhood. I didn't think about items like toys or anything like that. I thought about the things that I learned. So the first thing I think that we do, beyond crayons and markers, but also probably one of the first things that we do in art is use our fingers. And that made me think about fingerprint art. And then fingerprint art made me think about printmaking. And how can we do that with easy, available tools? You can buy your own ink pads. They have plenty of those. You can do a search online for fingerprint ink pads, and you can find little tiny, cute, all kinds of colors of ink pad, or you can just use washable markers. This is Crayola washable marker, but you could get any kind of brand that you might have. And you can print with all kinds of things around your house, around the yard. The possibilities are totally endless. So I took one item, which is an egg carton. This is just an egg carton. That's styrofoam. You could use one that was paper, although it probably wouldn't resist the ink as much, so you wouldn't get the same style of printing, but play with it. I use the lids of the markers to make circles, and my fingerprints to make dots to draw in, and just my plain fingerprints. So this is you can go wild. Let yourself be a child. Think about what you did when you were a child, when you were making art. So let's get started. I'm going to use my egg carton first, and then I will do some other things. The things that you really need are your inks, which in this case are these washable markers. It's helpful to have ink pens and a Sharpie. There's no time in my life when a Sharpie isn't part of my art supplies. And for this particular situation, you're going to need to wipe your fingers off and your printing plates. So baby wipes work really well. You could try wet paper towels or anything that you have available. These are not the same kind of postcards that you have. These are just your typical unlined index cards. And I would suggest, if you want to play with things, get some of these, or even like a brown paper bag or craft paper like this is, and see how the inks are accepted by the paper, and see what happens. So your particular postcards, you might want to you know, play with them a little bit. You've got some extras, so you can play with them. So I've taken this egg carton and just cut it up. I've cut it up into all kinds of different things, and I have some plain plates that don't have anything on them. They're just printed like the way they come from the store, and then I have some plates that I've made. So you can use a pair of scissors to draw lines. I just used a paper clip to punch these holes. So let's try that, just for a design. So just easy things that you have around the house. And think about patterns, any kind of pattern that you might want. If you have a doodle that you do, you can put that pattern into your plate. You can also use other things for plates, anything that you have around the house. You can use strings or all kinds of things, bits of this and that. So think about it and come up with something. This is how art started. This is how we started visually doing things that we see in nature or in other people. You say, well, a bunch of dots, where do I see that in nature? All over the place. Check it out. Look and see, use your eyes to find your materials. We're gonna start with this quarter-ish of, or a third of the egg carton, and I'm just gonna take, this time I'm gonna do an entirely red postcard. So just take my marker and color this. This is gonna work better than, you know, pretty much any other kind of ink, because you probably aren't gonna pick up the same amount of ink on an ink pad as you will if you color it in. So I would say for this technique to definitely use these washable markers. We want to use washable markers so that we can wash the ink off. I just press it on there and voila. Sometimes you don't have to ink it again. We'll see if I have enough. Oh, that's so cool. So, well, let's see, what can I do next? Sometimes you got to think about it. I think I'll use my new plate that I just made. See how it's bubbling up there? One of the things that you can do is before you put ink on it the first time, just go ahead and wipe it off. Let it dry a little bit. And it will accept the ink better now that I've wiped whatever was on there off. Whatever was resisting my ink. I don't want to color in where the dots are. I just want to color the surface because I have this little tiny printing plate. And my fingers are the press. So I'm just coloring. How many times when you were a kid did you make something out of an egg crate? Maybe a caterpillar? That was always the go-to thing. But I remember using them to plant seeds and painting them so they were really cute for planting seeds. This is the latch of the egg crate. It's this part right here that latches into the hole, and I just cut that out. I like the image that it makes. I just color around this part. It's kind of hard to hold on to, but just color around it. And stamp with it. Oops. So, all things that you have at home that you feel like, you know, would accept some ink. I remember as a kid making impressions of fish, which was kind of a weird thing, but you know, you go to art and the teacher has a fish for everybody, like a real, you know, dead fish. Rolling ink over it and making art, making impressions. So, play with your design. You know, one of the things to remember is that an odd number helps sometimes with balance of composition. I tend to find myself having to add in an extra. I guess I look at things evenly, maybe. I don't know. So this is the part in the lid of the egg crate or egg carton that sticks down and holds the eggs away from each other. And I love the impression this makes. I can use it to make all kinds of different lines. You can color the whole thing in or just color part of it, just ink up part of it and use that. So I think I will put this here. You want to overlap lines sometimes or fit into places so that the eye follows different lines. I'm going to show you how I use this, just part of it. So I'll just ink a little portion of it. And then I can bring it in different ways. Now, here I'm using a lot of square angles. And you want to repeat some of those things so that you're using, I can wipe that off. So let me try this. This is something I haven't tried yet, but I'm going to try it and see if I like it. And if not, I'll probably be able to fix it some way. Just the two lines. Be two parallel lines. Oh, I like that. All right, well that was smart. Okay, so I'm going to take another plate that I previously made. I do like to put different images on things, combine them. This will pull in both the dots and the lines that I made with the other plates. I'm going to put that down here too. I'm not. I don't really want to do that. So one of the things that I like to do is use the lid of my marker and color it as a printing image. You might have a cookie cutter or something like that, maybe even some kind of kitchen utensil. You think, wow, that impression will look cool. Try it. See what you think. The possibilities are truly endless. So, there we have. See, I can't resist. I just need to put another one, even though it's not an odd number. And I have to find another place for that. And
And that rule isn't a rule, it's just something to think about. An odd number helps you with composition and balance. So, there we have a print made totally with a marker, a piece of paper, and an egg carton. All right, the one thing that happens when you're making these fingerprint postcards or paintings, if you'd like to call them that, I would say they're paintings, is that your hands are going to get really dirty and stained with the inks. So remember that, and you can wipe in between if you don't want those inks to mix. I'm going to do this. This is a very purple postcard, and I think, or painting, and I think one thing to think about is the way you use color. So I intentionally put an orange spot in there just to give it a little bit of a, hey, there's some other color out here, kind of an idea. These pieces that you see, those are actually my fingerprints. I just drew on my fingerprint and printed that. So we're gonna do all of this, and there are some square fingerprints. I inked my finger and rolled it differently. These are printed, then reprinted, and so it's much lighter. So you can work with all of these things. We'll try my favorite, which is green. All right, so I'm just gonna go about coloring my fingers. I'm left-handed, as you can see. I'm holding the marker with my left hand, and I started doing this by coloring my left finger, but it felt so weird to use the marker in my right hand that I started doing my right finger. So this way I'm using both of my hands, both sides of my brain, and use different fingers because they have different fingerprints, and you can use a little bit longer fingerprint. Now I'm doing these in rows and kind of like dots, but that's okay. Do what you want to do. I generally don't use my thumb because it's harder to get my thumb into the places where I really want a mark. So, and then here's a second mark. So that's really, I love the way it picks up some of the ink that you haven't seen yet, but it's paired with this very light color. So, and I still have some ink on my finger. I could have rolled that, using that, making kind of a darker edge like that. You can use your pinky. I don't use my pinky as much either because it's so, at least on my fingers, it's so much smaller than all my other fingerprints that it doesn't do the same thing. Okay, now it's dry on this finger. Even though it's dark, it's not going to print. See, no printing. And I'm going to show you how to do these marks. You just draw that on your finger, and it's pretty cool the way it picks it up and puts it down. So, you can really play with your finger. You have to make a pretty quick print, so you don't want to do anything really complicated, but that one looks really great. I like that. I'm going to do that again, but with a different finger. So, and I can roll that, and it's bigger and wider. I'm going to do some of my dots that I love to do, and roll those. Pretty fun doing this. You can do larger shapes, so I'm doing some circles now, as you can see, maybe, and we'll see what that looks like. Not as good, but that's user error. Remember, you have that little sort of peak in your fingerprint, and it can kind of get in the way, so just play with that. And that's what this really is. It's just playing. It's really just taking your ideas and playing with them like you did when you were a child. Picasso said at the end of his life that he had spent his entire life trying to get back to the place where he was making art like he did when he was a 5-year-old. And to me, that means being free and not worrying so much about the standards, but allowing yourself to fail and allowing your emotion to come through. But you can still use principles of art. So, as I said before, I don't want this to just be a green, totally green postcard. So I will put a different color in here. In a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna wipe my fingers off. I'll show you that, it comes off, not as quickly maybe as you might get it off if you're washing your hands, but I will say that once you do this, it makes it easier to, when you wash your hands, to get this off. So you might want to sit down and do this for a little while and wash your hands and go do something else and then come back. It's a really easy thing to pick up and put down. Whereas if you were painting with a brush or something, you're gonna, have to clean the brush. So I'm gonna go with some purple. Make sure my fingertips are dry. And I'm gonna just do a couple of dots. And I think I'll do some lines. I really like those lines. I did them across my fingerprint. Those are really good. I like those. So something that you might be attracted to, do it again. See how it feels to do it again. Take your patterns and motifs and pull them throughout whatever you're making, whether it's 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. You want to use those motifs to express yourself. I don't know if that's what that one's going to work. Worked a little bit. This is like relaxation, also just playing around. If you're not talking on a video, teaching people how to do this, and you're just quiet, you can think about all kinds of things. Listen to what's going on outside. Maybe children are playing outside, or maybe you can hear the birds or other animals. So you don't have to use your whole fingerprint. You can make these designs. Sometimes you just need to step back and look at it. What have I done? See if you can reproduce it. You can also use the marker as a marker and make your own put your hand into it, not just your fingerprint. All right, one last one. I think I need to put some more green in here. So I'm actually going to see what happens if I go over this. See if it pulls up any of that purple. It might. Didn't really pull up any of the purple. It was probably too dry. So that one's finished. And we're going to move on to taking the fingerprints and using them as kind of our own little palette, or to suggest a shape or something else. All right, so these postcards take a little bit longer because you have to, these methods, I will say, take a little bit longer because you end up not only putting the fingerprints on, but then drawing. So I'm going to do a combination of these on one card so that we don't spend a lot of time. And I probably won't finish it. You can see what these look like. These are faces. These are trees. You can do animals. You can do anything. I just really wanted to do trees and faces. And then these over here are my doodle. This is what I do when I'm doodling. And it's so much something that I do that's even on the back of my business card. So there's my business card front, and there's my business card back. So I use these different lines in everything that I do. You can see that these are the same lines that you actually use when you're making faces or trees. They're just not as many of them and not as many a variety of them pulled out from the images. So here we go. And I'm just gonna do a rainbow of colors here so that I've got cool colors and warm colors, so it'll just be everything. And I'll show you how I do these. And you can do these in any kind of pattern that you want, whatever. Mix your colors up, have fun with it. And these are going to be, if they're faces and trees, they're going to be upside down to you because I'm going to draw them the way I draw them. So my fingers are getting really messy. Very, very messy. Probably need to wipe these off. So if you're going to do a rainbow of colors, have your wipes, your, everything, have them available to you. And play with how you use your colors, just the same way that you would play with the kind of line that you're using. I'm not going to use the brown, gray, or black markers, but you can definitely use them, and you can see that I use them, especially in this postcard over here. Use the gray, brown, and black, and also in this one I use those. So play with that. Now I want my hands to be dry so that when I'm holding the postcard I don't mark it up with other colors. So first I'm going to do a face, and always remember that if you have an oval for a face, that the eyes are going to be about in the middle. So maybe you want to start with the eyes and the nose. I'm going to start with the nose here because my fingerprint actually kind of lended itself to that. I had some kind of a mark, so I'm just putting some eyes in and some eyebrows. The ears come to the top of the corner of the eye. The top of the ear comes to the corner of the top, the eye. The mouth kind of comes to the bottom of the earlobe. And maybe you want to make a mouth, or maybe you just want to make a smile. Give them some pupils so they can see. This one has some definite demarcations for hair that I think are kind of fun, so I'm going to follow those. And you might want to mark out the chin and see how that goes on the side of the face. And maybe give them a little bit of a chin. So there you go. Got a funny little face. Maybe I'll do another one over here too. I like this hairline, so I'm going to start with the hairline first. And just let that tell me what I want to do. These two have some spiky hair. Put those ears in. And you can put different expressions on the face, different nose shape. Maybe make the eyes look surprised. Oh, what's going on? Maybe give them a neck. You can shade some of that in. Maybe draw the ear, inside the ear. There you go. This guy looks like he has feet. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. All right. So now I'm going to do some trees, and we know that trees have a main trunk. And that they have branches coming off them. I think doing the trees is the most relaxing for me. You might want to check whether the Sharpie, works on the paper that you're using. It might sink in too much or be absorbed and, run into the fibrous nature of the paper. So you want to check on that. So see what your fingerprint does for your inspiration with trees. I like to give them a little bit of extra look out and look at how the trees in your yard are shaped. You could turn these into leaves instead, because leaves and trees are often branches and veins, and so that's kind of cool. And now I'm going to do my doodle. And I usually just start with something and go with it. Sometimes people ask me if this is some kind of a language, but it's not. Or maybe it's the language of my brain. But I tend to find a couple of marks and use those. So whatever you do, doodle. Sometimes the square print makes it easier to do that, but you could do a whole bunch of prints, all fingerprints all over this, and then doodle on top of that. So you have 2 layers, and go through the white area. I'm just doing a few to show you how I do it. I will alternate like this. So I have a dot underneath the X. It's just patterning. So there are many ways that you could do this, many things you can do. There's a combination. I can fill this whole card up with other things. So have fun.